Hi, I'm Mike Noter, and this is an 8-year Mike for Spokane update. Even though I'm a candidate for mayor, Mike for Spokane is really about more than just a candidacy or an elected office. This is my third campaign for mayor, but Mike for Spokane has been active for 8 years, and it's a global campaign actually. I don't actually take any money from anybody because I feel it's important about the concepts and principles and the functions of government are more important than any personal political career. I fully understand that politics is a money game and you're not likely to get elected if you don't accept money. I can understand that. I'd rather be the best candidate that I can and not compromise myself by taking money from other individuals and be somewhat beholden to them than I would be to get elected. I'm fairly confident that I could get elected if I was willing to spend the money and dominate the media and really send a lot of money to some people that I don't really trust and really think that done a disservice to Spokane over the years. We won't get into that now, but part of this update, I'd like to look at what Mike Spokane has been involved in since the beginning. So I'd like to go back to 2007 and talk about my priorities at that particular time. And this is what I sent the Spokesman Review editorial board when they asked me of their opinion or asked me to respond to what I thought was best for Spokane. And these are the things that I still think are important. So whether I'm elected or whoever's elected, these are issues that I take the elections as a time to draw attention to these issues. And I want everybody to be aware of them if they're in Spokane. And we can all have different opinions about the outcomes or what happened, but this is it's key to the value we get out of the government, the quality of life in Spokane, and our future economic prosperity is often largely dependent on the conduct of our government, which in the past we've had problems with. So jumping into back to 2007, the first thing that in my campaign was end secrecy in government and public information lawsuits. Back then, and even to this day, the city of Spokane has lost a lot of lawsuits because they weren't being honest and they weren't revealing information and they were manipulating the facts. It's easier for me to get information about the city now because this is my third campaign and I've been around these issues for a long time. But the average citizen, all is not as it appears from what we get from the city often, and often how it's reported to by the local press. Primarily the dominant press being the newspaper and the TV stations that group owns. This is key to City of Spokane because the quality of information that we have, it affects the outcome of our decisions, the quality of our decisions. Also pretty much determines who you have as elected officials representing you. And a lot of times the people that you elect you're sold a bill of goods or a narrative, but when you look in closer, all is not as they appear. It's a real problem with government. With politics is you can buy an election pretty easily, but to stand on principle and do the kind of things you get better value out of city government, well, that's a challenge, and you can alienate a lot of people. If you're reducing the size of government means usually taking jobs and eliminating waste that somebody's responsible for, and there's a lot of resistance to that. Before you can do any of that, you really need to know what's going on, and we've made some progress in that area. Sadly, through city losing lawsuits by withholding information they should, but it's the cost of eternal vigilance. If you want good government, you have to stay on top of good government, and you cannot rely on any individual or organization to give you the full story. And that is more true in Spokane than most jurisdictions or most communities for reasons we'll get into a little later. The second thing on my list was reduce solid waste costs by $500 million over 20 years. A lot has changed with the solid waste system. Cheney, the Valley, Liberty Lake have all broken away from the system. The county's probably going to. A lot of problems with that solid waste system. We paid a lot of money, way more than we should have. I kind of blame the press. I kind of blame the city. Clearly, we haven't saved $500 million over 20 years, but those jurisdictions that are leaving are going to get much better value for their waste dollars, solid waste dollars. What's going to happen with the city of Spokane? Hard to say. There's rumors that the rates are going to go up because they've lost the revenue flow. A lot of the people that caused the problems over the last 20, 30 years are high up in the hierarchy. Solid waste, cost of utilities are a big problem in Spokane, and they remain a problem. So even though we've broken up the solid waste system, which I think is a good thing, citizens can kind of move their businesses out in neighboring jurisdictions. They don't have to leave the state completely or the county completely. They can get much better deal for their utility dollars outside of Spokane. And one of my focuses is actually lowering the cost of utilities so that we can get good value. We not only charge very high rates for our garbage, we add a 25% utility tax on top of that. And all those dollars and all the money are not used to good effect for the individual citizens. The third thing on the list was to establish the AutoZim Memorial. Now, back in 2007, a lot of problems with the police investigation, a lot of conflicting problems that most of the community is pretty aware of now. I lobbied openly for a AutoZim Memorial, but I wanted it paid for the police guild. I wanted the police guild to pay for it because really it was the police that failed us here. I don't want to judge the outcome of the trial and the things that happened since then, but clearly an innocent man died at the hands of the police department, our local police, and a memorial to AutoZim was a way to acknowledge a problem, make it right with the AutoZim family and the community at large. It's how you establish trust. This militant, we're not unaccountable all the way through was one of the reasons I made a big deal about this AutoZim memorial. Very controversial then. Took a couple of mayor cycles before we got that taken care of. It actually took the feds coming in and putting a boot in the ass of the government before we really got this thing settled. We spent many, many millions of dollars. The mayor now has, he's patched things up with the AutoZim family, and they're pretty happy. Whether that constitutes that the mayor should be going around the country teaching policing practices, the jury's still out on that because we have issues with police oversight in Spokane that just have not been resolved yet. The Ombudsman committee has turned out to be a bit of a fiasco and ongoing. We have no real police oversight. And part of the thing coming out of the AutoZim and part of the reason for the memorial was to establish an independent police oversight for transparency and somebody looking over these issues and not always relying on law enforcement to tell us what is and what isn't. I'm happy that we have the AutoZim memorial, and in a sense that is a victory, but it's not the full victory. There's more. We're not done with this oversight and police stuff. We have to get it right because the quality of safety, the safety and police and law enforcement in a community is the basis by which your economy can expand. If you don't have faith in your public safety and your government and to protect your individual rights, people will be reluctant to invest here. They don't want to expand here. They start having they don't feel safe, they have negative run-ins for the employees, they move elsewhere. We've made some progress, we're not done on that one. Number 4 is cost performance measurements and goals for all city services. I've been in business quite a while, and it's been my experience that the better you get at anything, the quicker and the cheaper it becomes. Yes, there's inflation, and there's always a rising cost of doing business in that sense, but there's also new technologies, new information technologies. There's lots of ways to give more value, expand your services at the same cost or reduce your costs if you're not expanding the values. There's a disincentive in the city and all government really is that no one goes around wanting less funding, right? No one's rewarded for protecting the individual citizen. They're rewarded for feathering their nests and always expanding the budgets. And by putting cost and services and metrics and measuring your performance, the value you get in any department is the only way you're going to gauge how well you are increasing the amount of value that you return to the citizen and the ratepayer, the taxpaying public. A lot of this I can't really give good value unless I'm elected mayor, but any mayor, any city council should always be looking at these metrics. And if they don't have those metrics, they should develop them so they can really gauge their own performance as a leader of the community. To always be for some unachievable goal for some grandiose narrative that we're for the little guy and do nothing for them, it really doesn't. I mean, maybe it worked during the election cycles, but it isn't giving us good value in our government. 5, increase internet access to the city departments and its managers. And back in 2007, the internet and social media really wasn't getting going. Since then, the city has made some pretty good advances there. They have these forums on public access television, which is what I was pushing for back then, and that's happening. They've improved the website presence. There is some social media. There are problems with it, not as usable as it should be. It doesn't get us to the information we should see, but there is marked improvement and advancement in that area. So it's a plus, and I do appreciate those in city government that are working to make this transparency and the access of city information quicker and more efficient. But we still have problems about getting to the right information at the right time when it's inconvenient for the city. The city still stonewalls a lot, too many lawsuits and too many requests for information because we just can't get it publicly to begin with. 6 is regularly scheduled on-camera mayor forum to hear citizens' concerns. I believe any elected official should make himself available to the public, and whatever those questions that anybody has regarding city government, that should be available to all. These videos are in that spirit. Some of that is happening down at City Hall now. I think we need more of it, but we're advancing along those lines. With Facebook, with Twitter, with all these social media accounts, you can project a lot of information, make yourself very accessible to the public in a pretty efficient manner, in a very, very low-cost manner. So I continue to draw attention to this communication through social media, and we have made some pretty good advances there. Not as far as we can always improve, but high marks there. Now here's where we get, number 7 is where we start getting kind of controversial and why I'm not too attracted to some people as a mayoral candidate. And specifically, number 7 was to ensure independent and objective daily press. In 2007, a lot of problems with our paper. The News Council came in and said basically they were rigging stories to benefit their private interests. It leads to the River Park Square fiasco and controversy that's raged for years. It's died down a little bit now, but some of those problems with the press and with this favoritism with public dollars and assets continues today. I've gone to the editorial board. The things I want to talk about and things they want to talk about, we have disagreement there. They kind of take my words out of context, but considering how I'm one of their critics, what they've written about me is, it's almost professional courtesy, because I'm sure they could say a lot worse about me, and I could say a lot worse about them. But the press is a key to how we get good value out of government. And investigative journalism and a lot of this really looking into the city and telling the story of what's going on is fell by the wayside. Lots of